The biggest, most effective psychological operations campaign that has ever been conducted is going on right now, and it is virtually invisible to the vast majority of people in North America. Some around the world have woken up and seen it, and they have tried to take steps to mitigate it. But unfortunately, North Americans are caught up a little bit too much in the minutia to be able to rise above to, say, helicopter level and see what's really going on. In this video, I'm going to point it out. We talk about PsyOps a lot, and I have a channel over at Patreon dedicated specifically to it. To understand what these people in China are doing, you have to have a command of the 24 basic cognitive biases and the 24 basic logical fallacies that affect every human being. Once you understand them, you can fight them. Until you understand them, you have absolutely no chance. The best way to talk about it now, to get started, is with this quote from Lou Holtz from a long time ago. He was a coach at Notre Dame and I believe South Carolina, commentator, very smart man. He said, "Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it." You see, here in America, we're very used to having the best of everything, whether it be militarily or socially or monetarily, but our attitudes and motivations are largely lacking, meaning our abilities have not been realized yet. How many of you have seen this picture about, came out a few years ago from our military? It's very embarrassing, to be very honest, as a former soldier. If I had been within, eye shot of this, I would have walked right over there. I would have knocked the pizzas out of the guy's hands and said, "Don't you ever let me see you in uniform like that again, and or carrying pizza." It's just absolutely, and I don't care what his rank was. Looks like he's only a corporal here, but the point is, there are people now saying that we need to wake up and start doing something a lot more proactive about what's happening to our military. Because make no mistake, they don't have to fire a shot. They don't have to fire a shot if they can just stop people from enlisting, stop people from joining. They can win a generation-long war just by removing soldiers from the battlefield, by keeping them too fat and happy at home. And the irony of all ironies is we're teaching our kids that being at home and happy and sitting on the couch and watching whatever on Netflix or using your smartphone is the American dream. Now, real quick, if you'd like a much deeper dive into PsyOps, join us over at the Florida Mucky Patreon channel. I can say things over there I can't say here, and you have to be able to say those things to get the training across. I was student U.S. Army Interrogation School, Fort Huachuca, Arizona, back in 1990, and believe me, there's a reason that school is way out in the desert, where nobody can see or hear anything, because it is brutal, but it is necessary. $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year, fully refundable first 90 days, no questions asked. Now, a lot of people have come to my channel and said, "Why do you show images like this? It's not necessary. It's not important." It is. Because when I was in the military, one of the reasons we didn't have an obesity problem was because of motivation and attitude. Remember what Coach said here? Ability is what you're capable of doing. Everybody who showed up at boot camp pretty much had the same ability. Motivation, what makes you do something, determines what you do, and your attitude determines how well you do it. Now, I'm just going to shoot straight here. Back in the 80s and 90s, young men who looked like this, showed up in the military, and were put together like this, did so because they wanted to pull girls that looked like the girls across the top of the screen. That was their primary motivation. And I'll say it this way, that was ours, guys. Help me down the comment section. That was our primary motivation. I mean, yeah, there was all sorts of other things. It makes you a better soldier. You can achieve your mission a lot better, all this. Some might say that shouldn't be your only motivation. It was. 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old men, that's what motivates them. And the military takes advantage of that. And they help guys go from that and they say, hey, look, that's one really great reason, but here's another really great reason to stay in shape. And you look good in uniform, and young ladies that age, for some reason, gravitate to guys in uniform that look like this. So it was something that, nobody needed a smartphone to tell us this. Now, one of the biggest problems is that when you allow yourself at that age to get fat and unmotivated and out of shape and sitting on the couch, and that's rewarded, eventually the depression will catch up with you because it's a result of heart disease that follows. This just came out today. This is an article from today, 4/27/2024. Depression and cardiovascular disease are genetically linked, meaning one causes the other. If one shows up, the other will follow. Meaning if you allow yourself to get into a state of cardiovascular disease, being overweight, being out of shape, there will be no way you can avoid depression. And from a guy's standpoint, there's just one more step after that, and that's ED. And then once you put all that together, you can guarantee you do not have an effective soldier. I don't care whether you're male or female at this point. You do not have an effective soldier. Now, imagine you're the Chinese and you have the ability to put your content into the hands of every young person in North America. You're going to give them content that is going to keep them depressed, that is going to keep them sad, that is going to keep them unmotivated, that is going to keep them unhopeful. It doesn't matter what it is. Just make sure it doesn't encourage male and females getting together, or even men competing amongst men to be, the biggest, strongest, fastest, better looking, whatever. Make sure you don't encourage any of that. Make sure you encourage soft and fat and lazy and compliant. You will win wars 20 years, 30 years, 100 years down the road without having to fire a shot. Don't allow that crap at home. Don't allow it at home. But make sure your enemies are seeing this. And it's a vicious cycle. Once you get that cycle going with somebody, it'll start to feed on itself. The depression, the low energy, the negative thoughts, the withdrawal, the guilt, the sadness. And then eventually, the body will follow. Now, they know this. Russia, 5 years ago, banned smartphones in its military. Banned smartphones. And in this country, gosh darn it, hold on. There were 3 studies done. This was April 27 of this year. And let's see if we can find it. I hate this when this happens. Hold on. Basically, it's the Daily Mail, and it's talking about how 1/3 of young Americans are too fat to even try to join the military. To even attempt it. I mean, imagine being that depressed. And they've tried to lower the standards and do all of this stuff and introduce all this state-of-the-art physiology training. And it's really a lot simpler than what people want to make it be. How many remember the story about this drill sergeant that got basically read the Riot Act? This is back in November of 2020, about soft recruits using cell phones. He couldn't believe all these kids show up basic training, not even ready, not even close to soldier, not even really trying to be better, and just using their phones to take pictures and whine and cry and complain about everything. If you don't think there's a concerted effort, to do this, think again. These people that want to see our destruction here in the West know exactly what it's going to take. They're going to use what we have instilled as our own values against us. Now, I'm not saying that every man, woman, and child who's, 50, 60, 70 years old should, look like we looked when we were in our 20s. But it shouldn't be something that there should be young people spending 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 hours a day on cell phones and ending up depressed and overeating to deal with those feelings. And then also being discouraged to go out and compete for the attentions of the opposite sex. I know a lot of people think I'm fixated on this, that this doesn't really even exist anymore. To my generation, it's frightening. It truly is, because this was, while it wasn't the ultimate goal of life, it was the impetus for a lot of really good habits and a lot of really good things in a lot of people's lives. Staying in shape and working out and always having to kind of look over your shoulder a little bit about, the guy right behind you. It was always something where you had to compete. And you had to be at a certain minimum standard to even go up and talk to somebody like this without getting laughed off the beach. So you can like it, dislike it, say it's a moral failing or whatever. It was the reality. It was just the reality. And we didn't have the smartphones to distract us. We didn't have someplace we could go run and, basically get our little dopamine pat on the back and say, you're just fine how you are. It didn't work that way. And it's, like I said, it just didn't happen all of a sudden. This is Psywarfare 101. And I'll say this again. This is such great advice. Ability is what you're capable of doing. And we've seen people do that, where they lost control and they'd gained a bunch of weight, but they decided to take control of their lives. They found something that motivated them to do something, to get up and make changes. Motivation determines what you do. Now, how long you do that for and how well you do it and the effective nature of the things you choose to do, it's going to be your attitude. A lot of people try for 2 weeks, maybe a month, 6 weeks, and they'll find somebody to say, oh, you've done enough already. Just the fact that you even tried is enough. And then they'll quit. So I just wanted to throw this out there. A lot of people wonder why my channel covers the things it does the way it does, why it shows the images it does. Believe me, it is so much easier to win a war without having to fire a shot. People want to talk about Red Dawn invasion. They don't have to. Why waste the effort? Why waste the time when you can destroy your enemy's military by just motivating them to not have one in 2 generations or 3 or 4 generations? So I'll leave it there. God bless y'all. If you'd like a deeper dive into this, Florida Monkey Patreon channel, $1 US, fully refundable. Is that per week, per video? No, per month. $1 per month, fully refundable first 90 days. No questions asked. Everyone who showed up there, God bless every one of you. Making a huge, huge difference in my life. Standing in the gap, standing in the breach. I definitely appreciate it. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.